A forbidden connection. The dim glow of distant stars lit up the vast space station Delta 9, a neutral zone floating between the borders of the Terran Federation and the mighty Zephyrian Empire. It was a place where traders, bounty hunters, and outlaws gathered. Among them was Captain Ray Carter, a battle-hardened human soldier, sipping a synthetic drink at a shadowy corner of a bar. He wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding him. Tonight, trouble arrived in the form of Princess Zaira of the Zephyrian Empire. She wasn't just another alien. She was royalty, an untouchable figure in her empire, known for her sharp mind and ruthless strategies in war. She had no reason to be here, in a place crawling with spies and mercenaries. Yet here she was, her emerald skin shimmering under the dim neon lights, her piercing golden eyes scanning the crowd. Ray didn't need to guess. She was looking for him. Zaira moved with quiet grace, slipping into the seat across from him. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice smooth but urgent. "We don't have much time." Ray raised an eyebrow. He had worked with many aliens before, but this was different. He could feel it. The tension. The danger. "You shouldn't be here, Princess," he said, keeping his tone casual but his hand close to his weapon. "Your people might think I kidnapped you." "They already think I'm a traitor," Zaira whispered, glancing around. "I need your help, Ray." Ray leaned back, his instincts screaming at him to walk away. The last time he got involved in intergalactic politics, it almost got him killed. But there was something in Zaira's eyes, a mix of fear and determination, that made him stay. "Help with what?" he asked cautiously. Zaira hesitated, then placed a small holodisc on the table. A blue projection flickered to life, displaying classified Zephyrian data. Blueprints, coordinates, a secret military operation. Ray's eyes narrowed. "You stole this from your own people." "I had no choice," Zaira said. "My father, the Emperor, is planning something terrible, a war that will wipe out millions. I tried to stop him. But now I'm a fugitive. And there's more." She took a deep breath, looking away for a moment before locking eyes with Ray. Her voice wavered. "I'm pregnant." Ray stiffened. For a moment, the buzzing sounds of the bar seemed to disappear. He blinked, trying to process her words. With your child." Silence. Ray exhaled sharply, running a hand through his short, dark hair. This wasn't just bad. This was suicidal. A human and an alien princess. It was unheard of. Unacceptable. If the Zephyrian Empire found out, they wouldn't just come for Zaira. They would come for him. And they would kill the child. How is this even possible?" he muttered, still trying to wrap his head around it. "I don't know," Zaira admitted. "Our species shouldn't be compatible. But this child, it's different. I can feel it. Something powerful is growing inside me." Ray looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something beyond her royal status. She wasn't just a princess. She wasn't just an alien. She was a mother, terrified for her unborn child. Footsteps echoed nearby. A group of heavily armed Zephyrian soldiers entered the bar, their glowing blue armor making them impossible to miss. They were scanning the crowd, searching. "They found me," Zaira whispered, her hand tightening around the holodisc. Ray cursed under his breath. He had a choice. He could walk away, let Zaira deal with her own mess, or he could help her, help their child. But deep down, he already knew the answer. "Come on," he said, grabbing her hand and leading her towards the back exit. The moment they moved, one of the Zephyrian soldiers spotted them. "There. Seize the traitor." The bar exploded into chaos. Blaster fire erupted, bottles shattered, and patrons dived for cover. Ray pulled out his pistol, taking down one of the guards with a precise shot. He dragged Zaira through the back alley, dodging laser blasts. "Where's your ship?" Ray shouted. "Docking Bay 6, Zaira replied, her breathing ragged. More soldiers closed in from both sides. They were outnumbered. Ray gritted his teeth. We need a distraction. He spotted a stack of fuel canisters nearby. Without hesitation, he aimed and fired. The explosion rocked the entire alleyway, sending the soldiers scrambling for cover. Using the chaos, Ray and Zira sprinted towards the docking bay. The doors slid open, revealing Zyra's sleek silver spacecraft. They'd barely made it inside before the guards recovered. As Ray hit the launch sequence, laser blasts ricocheted off the hull. The engines roared to life. Within seconds, they were airborne, soaring into the darkness of space. Ray exhaled, slumping back into the co-pilot's seat. Well, that was close. Zira sat beside him, holding her stomach. This is only the beginning, Ray, she murmured. Ray nodded. He knew she was right. The Zypharian Empire wouldn't stop. They would hunt them across the stars. But for now, they had escaped, and the fight for their child's survival had begun. The Empire's wrath. The darkness of space stretched endlessly before them, stars blinking like distant sentinels. Inside the dimly lit cockpit of the stolen Zypharian spacecraft, Ray Carter sat gripping the controls, his jaw clenched. Beside him, Princess Zira rested her hand on her stomach, her golden eyes filled with both determination and fear. The silence between them was heavy, punctuated only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. We're not safe yet, Ray muttered, glancing at the radar screen. No immediate threats, but he knew better than to trust the quiet. The Zypharian Empire didn't forgive betrayal. Zyra let out a slow breath. My father won't stop hunting us. Ray turned to her, studying her features, sharp yet delicate, her emerald skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked strong, but he could see the exhaustion creeping in. She wasn't just running for herself. She was running for their child. He had spent years fighting against the Zypharians. They were ruthless conquerors, convinced of their superiority over humans. And now he was on the run with their princess and carrying their greatest secret. This ship can take us anywhere, Ray said finally. We need to disappear. Zira shook her head. There's nowhere safe. Before Ray could argue, the ship's warning system blared, a high-pitched, shrieking sound that sent chills down his spine. Incoming transmission. Imperial. Enforcer ship pistas. DTTTT. Ray's stomach tightened. He punched a button, bringing up the external scanners. The screen flashed red. 3 Zypharian warships. Fast, heavily armed. Closing in. Damn it, Ray growled, gripping the controls tighter. Zyra's breath hitched. My father must have activated the blood hunt. Ray shot her a sharp look. The what? The highest level of pursuit, Zyra explained, her voice barely above a whisper. They won't just capture us, Ray. They'll kill you on sight, and they'll take me back to be punished. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched her stomach. They won't let this child be born. Ray's blood ran cold. He had spent years surviving against impossible odds, but this was a death sentence. Not if I can help it. Hold on, he said, flipping switches, adjusting thrusters. I'm not planning on dying today. The warships grew larger on the screen, their sleek, black hulls cutting through space like predatory beasts. One wrong move and they would be vaporized. Ray's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them. They couldn't outgun them. That left only one option. I'm taking us into the nebula belt, he announced. Zira's eyes widened. Are you insane? That area is unstable. It's filled with collapsing stars and radiation storms. Ray gave her a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. Exactly. They won't follow us in. Without another word, he yanked the controls, sending the ship into a sharp dive. The Zypharian warships immediately adjusted course, their weapons charging. Then the stars ahead of them vanished, replaced by swirling cosmic storms of blue and violet energy. The nebula belt. Ray gritted his teeth as they plunged into the chaos. The ship rattled violently, alarms blaring in protest. Thick clouds of radiation swirled outside, disorienting even the best tracking systems. The Xipherian warships hesitated at the edge. For a brief second, Ray thought they had made it. Then, the lead warship fired. A golden energy beam sliced through the storm, barely missing their hull. "They're coming in," Zyra shouted. Ray didn't hesitate. He twisted the controls, taking them deeper into the storm. Lightning crackled around them, streaks of raw cosmic energy striking dangerously close. The ship's shields began failing, warning lights flashing red. Another blast rocked the ship, sending them spiraling. Zyra clutched her stomach, gasping. Ray saw it too late. Ahead of them, a gravity well had formed, a vortex of collapsing space, sucking in everything around it. They were flying straight into it. Ray cursed, fighting the controls. "Hold on." The ship groaned in protest, metal straining against the pull. The Xipherian warships, unwilling to risk the vortex, pulled back, hovering at a safe distance. But Ray and Zyra had no such choice. They were going in. The ship shuddered as they breached the event horizon. Everything outside stretched and twisted, space bending in ways it shouldn't. For a terrifying moment, it felt like they were being torn apart. Then, silence. The ship shot out of the vortex into unknown space. The alarm stopped. The turbulence was gone. Ray panted, gripping the controls with white-knuckled hands. He checked the readings. What the hell just happened? Zyra looked at the scanners, her face paling. Ray, look. He followed her gaze. His breath caught. They weren't in known space anymore. Ahead of them, a massive planet loomed. A world that shouldn't exist. It was ancient, covered in glowing ruins and floating monoliths. But what made Ray's heart stop was the energy readings. Unstable, powerful, alien. Then, the ship's system detected something else. A signal, coming from the planet itself. Zyra's voice was barely above a whisper. I think we were brought here. Ray frowned. By what? Before she could answer, a deep, rumbling voice echoed through the ship's comms. Welcome, travelers. We have been expecting you. Hunted across the stars. A cold silence filled the cockpit as Ray Carter and Princess Zyra stared at the strange, ancient planet looming ahead. Massive ruins floated in orbit, bathed in the eerie glow of an alien sun. The ship's sensors flickered, struggling to process the impossible energy readings emanating from the surface. Then, the deep, disembodied voice repeated through the comms. Welcome, travelers. We have been expecting you. Ray tensed, hand hovering over the ship's weapon controls. That's never a good sign. Zyra's golden eyes darkened with worry. Who are they? Before an answer could come, the ship lurched violently, engines straining against an invisible force. Something's pulling us in. Ray cursed, trying to regain control. But it was useless. The unseen energy gripped the vessel, guiding it downward in a slow, controlled descent toward the planet's surface. Zyra's breathing was uneven. She pressed a hand against her stomach. The moment they had crossed into this region of space, she had felt something. A presence. A call. And it wasn't just her. Their unborn child was responding, its very existence resonating with whatever lay beneath them. Ray had no choice but to brace for landing. The ship spiraled through thick violet clouds, emerging over a sprawling landscape of floating rock formations, glowing rivers, and towering monoliths covered in pulsating alien symbols. They weren't alone. A massive black citadel stood in the center of the ruined land, its twisted architecture humming with an ancient energy, and standing at its entrance was a figure, waiting for them. Ray exchanged a glance with Zyra. I'm guessing we're not turning around. Zyra exhaled and unclasped her seatbelt. We need to see who, or what, brought us here. The guardian of the lost civilization. The air outside was heavy with raw power, the kind that made Ray's skin crawl. Zyra, however, seemed almost drawn to it. As they stepped forward, the figure at the Citadel's entrance revealed itself, an ancient Zephyrian, unlike any Ray had ever seen. Its emerald skin was faded, almost crystalline, its eyes glowing with unnatural light. It stood tall in an elaborate robe, its fingers adorned with symbols that pulsed with the same energy as the ruins. Princess Zyra, the figure spoke, bowing its head slightly. Daughter of the Empire, bearer of the celestial bloodline. Zyra's breath caught. Who are you? I am HFY, last guardian of the Zypharian's lost past, the figure said. And you carry the child who will reshape the stars. Ray tensed. All right, I've had enough of the cryptic stuff. Who sent you? And why the hell are we here? HFY studied him for a long moment. You are the human, the one who defied the Empire and altered the course of fate. Ray folded his arms. Yeah, that's me. What's it to you? Instead of answering, HFY turned to Zyra, eyes filled with an eerie mix of reverence and concern. Your child is not just a hybrid, princess. It is the first of its kind. The first true bridge between humanity and the Zypharian race. The Emperor seeks to destroy it, for he fears what it represents. Zyra swallowed hard. And what does it represent? HFY stepped aside, gesturing toward the entrance of the Citadel. Come, there is much you must see. Ray exchanged a look with Zyra before nodding. He had a bad feeling about this, but at this point, what choice did they have? The secret the Empire hid. Inside, the Citadel was unlike anything Ray had expected. The walls glowed with shifting holographic murals, showing images of ancient Zypharians, not as conquerors, but as seekers of knowledge, explorers of the unknown. HFY touched one of the glowing panels, activating a massive projection. A holographic image of the Zypharian Emperor flickered into view. But this wasn't the Emperor as Ray knew him. This was a younger version, standing alongside humans in an old Terran research station. Zyra gasped. This can't be real. Ray frowned. Is that a peace treaty? HFY nodded solemnly. Long ago, before the wars, your people and mine were allies. Together, they sought to unlock the greatest secret of the universe. Zyra shook her head. That's impossible. The Emperor has always said humanity was weak, unworthy. The Emperor lies. HFY interrupted. He betrayed the Alliance. He erased history to maintain his rule. Ray clenched his fists. So what was the greatest secret? HFY's glowing eyes turned toward Zyra's stomach. The child. Ray and Zyra froze. HFY continued. A being that is neither fully human nor fully Zypharian, but something new. Something that can survive the next evolutionary shift. Zyra's pulse quickened. What do you mean, next evolutionary shift? HFY's expression darkened. The Zypharian bloodline was never meant to remain pure. It was designed to evolve. The Emperor fears this truth because it threatens his power. He knows that if your child is born, it will awaken something long forgotten in our DNA, and it will change everything. Ray exhaled. So that's why they're hunting us. Zyra placed a protective hand over her stomach. The truth hit her like a tidal wave. Her child was more than a political problem. It was the key to the future. A deep tremor ran through the Citadel. HFY's glowing eyes widened. They have found you. The Empire arrives. Outside, the skies split open as Zypharian warships emerged from hyperspace. Their dark, menacing forms cast long shadows over the planet. They had been tracked. Ray grabbed Zyra's wrist. Time to go. Now. HFY stopped them. You cannot run forever. The only way to stop this is to reveal the truth to the galaxy. Zyra hesitated, torn between fight and flight. But how? HFY pressed something into her palm, a small glowing device. This contains the lost history of our people. The truth the Emperor fears. Get it to the human colonies. Let them see what has been hidden. A voice crackled through the ship's comms. Surrender the princess and the traitor, or be destroyed. Ray grabbed his blaster, jaw set. I vote for the be destroyed option. Ishar Kai bowed his head. Then go. I will hold them off. The citadel shook as the first energy blasts rained down. Ray and Zira sprinted toward their ship, hearts pounding. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about a revolution. Betrayal in the shadows. The ground trembled beneath their feet as Ray Carter and Princess Zira sprinted toward their ship, dodging falling debris and the fiery blasts of Zypharian warships descending from the sky. The ancient citadel, once a silent guardian of lost knowledge, was now under siege. Zira clutched the holodrive in her hand, the last surviving proof of the Zypharian Empire's hidden past, of the alliance they had erased from history, and of the true significance of their unborn child. Ray glanced at her. If they get their hands on that. They won't, Zira interrupted, determination flashing in her golden eyes. Ahead, their stolen ship stood waiting, its hull scorched but still intact. The boarding ramp was down, inviting them in. But something wasn't right. The air around them felt too still, despite the battle raging in the sky. Ray slowed his pace. Years of combat had sharpened his instincts, and right now, they were screaming at him. Something's off, he murmured, gripping his blaster tightly. Zira hesitated. What do you mean? Before he could answer, the world around them erupted in gunfire. An ambush. Figures emerged from the shadows of the crumbling ruins, cloaked in dark combat armor. Their weapons glowed with Zypharian energy signatures, but their tactics were too precise, too human. Ray's blood ran cold. Bounty hunters. A voice echoed from the shadows, smooth and laced with arrogance. You didn't think you'd make it off this planet so easily, did you? A tall figure stepped forward, his armor emblazoned with the insignia of the Intergalactic Bounty Guild. His face was partially obscured by a visor, but Ray knew that voice. Commander Darius Kane. Ray's grip on his blaster tightened. Kane. I should have known the Empire would send their favorite attack dog. Kane smirked. The Empire didn't send me. Your own people did. Zira stiffened. What? Kane tapped a device on his wrist, and a holo-transmission flickered to life. The image of a Terran Federation general appeared. One Ray knew all too well. General Luther Vasquez. Ray's stomach twisted. Vasquez had once been his commanding officer, a man who preached about humanity's fight for survival against alien oppression. Carter. Vasquez's voice was gruff, unreadable. You've put us all in a difficult position. The Federation can't afford a war with the Zypharian Empire. Hand over the princess, and we'll let you walk away. Ray's chest tightened with rage. You're selling us out. Vasquez sighed. I'm preventing a war we can't win. The child she carries. It's a threat to everything we've built. Zira's eyes widened in shock. Your people fear the child, just like mine do. Ray's pulse pounded. They were trapped. The Federation wanted them dead just as much as the Empire did. Kane smirked. So, Carter, what's it going to be? Fight and die here, or hand over the girl. Ray didn't hesitate. He opened fire. The escape that almost wasn't. Chaos erupted. Ray and Zira dove for cover as gunfire rained around them. Kane's mercenaries moved with ruthless efficiency, herding them away from the ship. Zira gritted her teeth, pulling a compact energy blade from her belt. If they wanted a fight, they would get one. She moved like lightning, slicing through the ranks of their attackers. But there were too many. For every one they took down, two more took their place. Ray blasted his way toward the ship's entrance, covering Zira as she fought beside him. The ship was within reach, just a few more steps. Then Zira screamed. Ray turned just in time to see Kane's electro-whip wrap around her ankle. Before she could react, he yanked her backward, slamming her to the ground. Ray's world went red. Let her go, Kane. He snarled, aiming his blaster. Kane merely chuckled, his grip tightening on the whip. "She's not yours to save, Carter. She's property of the Empire. And as for that child," his voice darkened, "it should never have existed." Ray didn't wait. He fired a direct shot at Kane's wrist, severing the whip's power source. Kane stumbled back, cursing. Ray reached Zira, pulling her up. "Can you run?" Zira winced but nodded. "We need tow." A sudden blast of energy struck her from behind. Ray's heart stopped as Zira crumpled to the ground, unconscious. He spun, rage overtaking him. One of Kane's mercenaries lowered his weapon, smirking. "Sedation round. The Empire wants her alive." Ray's vision blurred with fury. He shot the mercenary in the chest, then turned to grab Zira. He barely made it 2 steps before another energy blast slammed into his back. The world tilted. His knees buckled. Darkness swallowed him. Captured. When Ray woke, the first thing he noticed was cold metal beneath him. His wrists were bound. His head throbbed. He forced his eyes open, blinking against the harsh light. He was in a Zephyrian prison cell. Panic surged through him. "Zira." A soft groan came from the far corner of the cell. He turned, relief washing over him. Zira was there, still unconscious but breathing. The sound of footsteps made him snap to attention. The cell door hissed open, and a tall figure stepped inside. Not a guard. Not Kane. The Zephyrian Emperor himself. Draped in his regal armor, the Emperor's piercing gaze bore into Ray. There was no anger, no fury, just calm certainty. "You've caused quite the disturbance, human." His voice was smooth, deliberate. Ray clenched his fists. "Go to hell." The Emperor ignored him. His golden eyes settled on Zira's unconscious form. "You were foolish to believe you could escape," he continued. "The child she carries is an abomination, a threat to the balance we have maintained for centuries." Ray's muscles tensed. "That abomination is your own grandchild." The Emperor finally met his gaze, unshaken. "And that is why I will make this offer once." He leaned forward. "Give me the child, and I will spare her life." Ray's breath stalled. The Emperor's voice was unwavering. "Refuse, and you will watch her die." The words hit like a death sentence. Ray glanced at Zira, his heart pounding. There was no way out. And for the first time, he realized he might have already lost. A reckless rescue. Pain. It was the first thing Ray Carter felt when he regained consciousness. A sharp, burning ache spread through his body, remnants of the energy blast that had taken him down. His head throbbed as he forced his eyes open, taking in his surroundings. A prison cell. Thick, impenetrable Zephyrian alloy walls surrounded him. The air was sterile, humming with the faint energy of force fields. The room was dimly lit by glowing red panels embedded in the walls, pulsating like a heartbeat. And then he saw her. Zira. She was still unconscious, lying on the cold metal floor across from him. Her breathing was shallow, her emerald skin pale under the artificial light. Her hands were chained to the wall, thick energy cuffs pulsing with a suppressive force. Ray's chest tightened. He pulled at his own restraints, his wrists bound in similar energy shackles, locking him in place. Then the door hissed open. A tall figure stepped inside. The Zephyrian Emperor. Draped in flowing obsidian robes laced with shimmering golden embroidery, the Emperor's presence was overwhelming. His face was cold, unreadable, his golden eyes void of emotion. He studied Ray for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Zira. "She is strong," the Emperor mused. "But even she has her limits." Ray clenched his jaw. "If you've hurt her." The Emperor held up a hand. "She is alive. For now." Ray's fists tightened. "What do you want?" The Emperor exhaled slowly. "A deal." He took a step closer, his gaze locking onto Ray's. "Give me the child," the Emperor said, his voice calm, measured. "And Zira will live." Ray's breath hitched, his entire body tensed, his mind racing. The Emperor continued, "The child is a mistake, an unnatural hybrid that should have never been conceived. If it is born, it will disrupt the balance of power across the galaxy." His golden eyes darkened. "You do not understand what you have created, human." Ray's heart pounded in his chest. He thought about the holodrive Zyra had stolen, the truth about the Empire's hidden history, the evolutionary shift their child represented. This wasn't just about tradition. The Emperor was afraid. Ray's voice was low, controlled. "If the child is so insignificant, why are you so desperate to destroy it?" The Emperor's gaze remained steady. "Because it is a threat." Ray shook his head, a smirk curling his lips. "You mean a threat to you?" A flicker of something, anger, crossed the Emperor's face before he turned sharply, walking toward Zyra. Ray's entire body tensed as the Emperor knelt beside her, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "She is my daughter," the Emperor said softly. "I do not wish to harm her. But she has defied me." His voice grew colder. "And if I must choose between her life and the stability of my empire, I will not hesitate." Ray's blood boiled. The Emperor stood, fixing Ray with a piercing stare. "This is your final chance, human. Surrender the child, or watch her die." Ray's breath was ragged. He knew Zyra would never give up their child, but she was unconscious, defenseless. And he was out of time. Breaking the chains. The moment the Emperor left, the lights in the cell dimmed, and the force field intensified, humming louder. Ray's mind raced. He had to get out. His eyes scanned the room, searching for weaknesses. He pulled at his energy restraints, but they wouldn't budge. Cypherian tech was damn near unbreakable. Unless... His mind flashed back to something Zyra had once told him. Zephyrian force fields adapt to the biosignature of whoever they restrain, but push the wrong frequency into them, and they overload. Ray smirked. Perfect. He took a deep breath, focusing. Cypherian tech was advanced, but it wasn't foolproof. If he could disrupt the energy pattern, even for a second, it might be enough. Slowly, he shifted his body, positioning his wrists so the cuffs aligned against the metal wall. Then, with every ounce of strength he had left, he slammed his wrists against the surface. The impact sent a sharp pulse through the force field. The restraints flickered, crackling. Again. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain, and slammed them again. The energy surge, then collapsed. The shackles snapped open, and Ray stumbled forward, free. He rushed to Zyra's side, carefully unlocking her restraints. Her eyes fluttered open. "Ray." "Shay," he whispered, gently lifting her into his arms. "We're getting out of here." But before they could move, the alarms erupted. The battle in the depths. The prison doors burst open, and armed Zephyrian guards flooded in, weapons raised. Ray didn't hesitate. Grabbing a fallen guard's weapon, he opened fire. The first guard dropped. The second took a shot to the chest before collapsing. Zyra, still weak, struggled to stand but summoned what little energy she had left. With a flick of her wrist, she unleashed a blast of pure Zephyrian energy, sending 3 guards flying backward. They bolted into the corridor, alarms blaring. Red lights flashed overhead as security droids whirred to life, scanning for intruders. Zyra staggered but forced herself forward. "Where's the ship?" Ray scanned the layout on a fallen guard's holo device. "Docking Bay 7. Zyra's heart sank. "That's too far." Ray pulled her close. "Then we run." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging blaster fire and slipping through narrowing doors. Behind them, more guards poured in. Ahead, the docking bay doors loomed. Ray's pulse pounded. Almost there. A blast door slammed shut in front of them. Ray skidded to a stop, swearing, "They're sealing us in." Zyra gritted her teeth. Not today. She pressed a hand to the door, her energy flaring. The walls shook. Sparks erupted. The force field sputtered. And then, the door exploded outward. Ray grinned. "Dan, I love it when you do that." They dashed through the opening, only to be met with Commander Kane, flanked by a squad of elite enforcers. He smirked. "Going somewhere?" Ray raised his blaster. "You have no idea. The last stand, or a new beginning." The air was thick with tension. The showdown was inevitable. But as Ray prepared for a fight, something unexpected happened. A voice echoed through the speakers. A woman's voice. Soft, unfamiliar. "Stand down." Kane stiffened. His calm earpiece buzzed. "What?" The voice continued. "Release them. Now." Ray and Zira exchanged confused glances. Then, the main holoscreen flickered to life, and the face of an unknown Zypharian woman appeared. Zira's breath caught. "Who is that?" Ray's stomach clenched, because the woman looked just like Zyra, but older. The voice spoke again. "We need to talk." The final stand. A cold silence filled the docking bay. Ray Carter stood with his blaster raised, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Zira was beside him, her breathing heavy, exhaustion weighing on her limbs, but her golden eyes were locked onto the massive holoscreen overhead, because the face staring back at her was impossibly familiar. A Zypharian woman, older, regal, an exact mirror of what Zira might look like in another 2 decades. The woman's voice echoed again, smooth and commanding. "Stand down. Release them immediately." The enforcers hesitated. Even Commander Darius Kane, the ruthless bounty hunter who had spent years chasing Ray across the stars, froze, his usual arrogance replaced by a rare flicker of doubt. Ray narrowed his eyes. "All right. Someone mind telling me what the hell is going on?" Kane scowled, his hand twitching over his sidearm. "Who is this?" The woman ignored him. Her golden eyes remained focused on Zira. "Princess Zyra," she said gently. "My name is Sirava, and I am your mother." The words hit like a shockwave. Zira staggered back, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. "That's impossible. My mother died when I was a child." Sirava's face softened. "That's what your father wanted you to believe." Ray glanced at Zira, watching as her hands curled into fists. The Emperor had lied about their child, lied about the history of his own people, and now, it seemed, he had lied about Zyra's past too. Kane's patience snapped. "This is a trick," he growled. "The Emperor gave the kill order himself. No one." "Enough," Sirava interrupted. The docking bay shook with sudden force. The Zypharian warships overhead faltered, their engines sputtering. Energy barriers flickered. Then, the entire Imperial flagship trembled. Ray's eyes widened. What the hell was that? Sirava turned to Kane, her golden gaze flashing with power. "You are no longer in control. I have taken command of the fleet." Kane's face paled. "You? What?" The holoscreen flickered, revealing the entire Zypharian fleet in chaos. Warships were no longer in attack formation. Some were turning away. Others were simply floating, their systems failing. Ray exhaled sharply. Whoever this woman was, she had just taken over an entire armada. Zira took a hesitant step forward. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "How? How are you here? Why now?" Sirava's expression was full of sorrow. "Because, my daughter, you have awakened something even your father cannot control. And he knows it. The war no one saw coming." The moment shattered. From the depths of the flagship, a thunderous explosion rocked the ship. Sparks erupted from the docking bay walls. Sirens blared. Kane regained his confidence, his lips twisting into a smirk. "You think you've won. The Emperor always has a backup plan." A new fleet of warships emerged from hyperspace, not Zypharian, not human, but something else entirely. Ray's grip tightened on his blaster. What the hell is that? Sarava's face darkened. The Annihilators. Zira sucked in a breath. That's just a myth. No, Sarava said. They are real. And your father has made a deal with them. The Annihilators were legendary creatures of destruction, a race so dangerous that no known civilization had ever survived their attack. They didn't conquer. They didn't negotiate. They erased. Ray turned to Zira. So let me get this straight. Your father, who already wanted us dead, just called in reinforcements that wipe out entire civilizations. Zira swallowed. Yes. Ray let out a slow breath. Oh, fantastic. The Annihilator fleet descended upon the battlefield. Their ships didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, space itself twisted around them, warping gravity and shattering anything caught in their path. Sarava's voice hardened. Listen to me. We cannot run. We cannot hide. There is only one way to stop this. She turned her gaze to Zira's stomach. Ray tensed. Oh no, I don't like where this is going. Zira stared at her mother. You mean, the child? Sarava nodded. Your child is not just a bridge between humans and Zypharians. It is the key to the next stage of our evolution. If the child is born, the Annihilators will no longer have power over us. Kane scoffed. That's insane. Ray shot him a glare. Buddy, look around you. We left insane behind a long time ago. Another explosion rocked the ship. Sairavat turned to Zira. You must embrace your power. The only way to survive this is for you to unlock what has been hidden in your bloodline. Zira's breath hitched. She could feel it, the energy humming inside her, stronger than ever. It wasn't just her. Her child was awakening. Ray placed a hand on her shoulder. His blue eyes met hers, steady and sure. I trust you. Zira exhaled. Then she closed her eyes. The awakening. A ripple of energy pulsed outward from Zira's body. It started as a soft hum, barely noticeable. Then it grew. A shockwave of golden light exploded from her core, shattering the energy restraints on the docking bay doors. The ships around them trembled as a new power surged through space. The Annihilator warships halted. For the first time in history, they hesitated. Sarava smiled. Yes, that's it. Zira's body lifted off the ground, her silver hair floating around her, her golden eyes glowing with newfound energy. She stretched out her hands, and the stars shifted. The Annihilator fleet, once an unstoppable force, began to unravel. Their ships disintegrated, breaking apart at the molecular level. The energy they fed on, the very essence of destruction, was being rewritten. They weren't being destroyed. They were being transformed. Ray shielded his eyes from the blinding light. And then it was over. The Annihilators were gone. The Zypharian warships were powerless, their systems fried. And Zira. She slowly descended, her body trembling, exhaustion settling in. Ray caught her before she could fall, holding her close. She blinked up at him. Did we? Ray let out a shaky breath. Yeah, I think we did. The comms crackled. Sarava's voice was calm, proud. It is done. The war is over. But Ray knew better. As he looked out into the vast expanse of space, he realized. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. A new beginning. A heavy silence filled the void of space. Where once an armada of warships had loomed, now there was only stillness. The Annihilators, the unstoppable force that had erased countless civilizations, were gone, dissolved into something new. And at the center of it all stood Zira, trembling, exhaustion pulling at her body as golden energy flickered around her like dying embers. Ray Carter held her tight, feeling her heart hammer against his chest. He had seen her fight before, seen her take down elite soldiers, seen her lead a rebellion against an empire that sought to erase her. But this was different. She had just rewritten the laws of nature. Her unborn child, their child, was still inside her, but something had changed. The energy radiating from her wasn't just hers anymore. It was ancient, powerful, and undeniable. Sairava, Zyra's mother, stood watching from the holoscreen, her golden eyes shining with pride. "The cycle has been broken," she said softly. Zyra, still weak, looked up. What did I do?" Sairava's gaze was unreadable. "You became what the Emperor feared most." Ray tensed. He turned toward the remnants of the Zypharian fleet, still hovering in space, their warships powerless after Zyra's awakening. And then, a single ship moved. A royal transport. Ray's stomach dropped. The Emperor was still alive. The last confrontation. A transmission flickered onto the holoscreen. The face of the Zypharian Emperor appeared, his golden eyes filled with something Ray had never seen before. Fear. "You?" His voice was hoarse, his regal tone slipping. "You should not exist." Zyra took a slow step forward, her hand still trembling from the power she had unleashed. "And yet here I am." The Emperor's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what you've done." Ray scoffed, stepping in front of Zyra. "She just saved your entire race, your entire empire, and you're still clinging to your lies." The Emperor's gaze darkened. "She has doomed us all." Sairava's voice was calm but firm. "No, husband. You doomed us the day you tried to erase the truth." For the first time, the Emperor faltered. His eyes flickered to Zyra's stomach. That child. It is not Zypharian. It is not human." His voice was barely a whisper. "It is something else." Zyra's fingers curled into fists. "And that terrifies you, doesn't it?" The Emperor exhaled sharply, stepping away from the screen. For the first time in his life, he was no longer in control. Ray narrowed his eyes. "So what now? You lost. The war is over. Surrender, and maybe, just maybe, we let you walk away." The Emperor's gaze snapped toward him. His lips curled into a sneer. "You think I will bow to a human?" Ray shrugged. "I think you don't have a choice." The Emperor's breathing was shallow. He turned his gaze back to Zyra. "You will regret this," he whispered. And then, the screen went black. Ray's entire body went rigid. "Damn it. He's running." Sairava's voice cut through the silence. "Let him go." Ray turned to her, disbelief flashing across his face. "Are you serious?" Sairava nodded. "His time is over. The Empire will not follow him now. Not after this." Zyra swallowed hard. For the first time in her life, she knew her father was truly powerless. And yet, she still felt a weight in her chest. Because as much as she hated him, he was still her father. Ray took her hand. She didn't have to carry that weight alone. The birth of something new. Days passed. The galaxy changed overnight. News of the Emperor's fall spread across the star systems. The Zypharian fleets, leaderless and broken, either surrendered or disappeared into the far reaches of space. The Terran Federation, once prepared for war, suddenly found itself negotiating a new future, one where humanity and Zypharians weren't enemies anymore. And at the center of it all was Zyra. She had gone from a fugitive to a symbol of unity. She had rewritten history, but none of it mattered to her as much as what was happening now. Inside the medical bay of a neutral space station, Zyra lay gripping Ray's hand as waves of pain crashed over her. "Almost there," the medic said, their voice calm but urgent. "You need to push." Zyra gritted her teeth, her entire body trembling as golden energy crackled around her. Ray brushed damp silver strands of hair from her forehead. "You're doing amazing, Zy." His voice was rough with emotion. "Just a little more." Zyra gasped, feeling something shift deep within her. And then, a cry echoed through the chamber. Ray felt his heart stop. A small, tiny life was placed in Zyra's trembling arms. A child. Their child. Zyra's breath hitched as she gazed down at the infant. The baby's skin was a perfect blend of emerald and human warmth. Its eyes, still adjusting to the world, flickered open, and they weren't golden. They were pure white, glowing softly with a light Ray had never seen before. Zyra's chest tightened. This was the future. Their child wasn't just a bridge between two species. It was the first of something entirely new. Ray exhaled, pressing a soft kiss to Zyra's temple. "What do we call her?" Zyra hesitated. Then a name came to her like a whisper from the stars. Nova. Ray smiled. Nova Carter. Zyra shook her head, her eyes never leaving their child. No. She lifted her gaze to Ray, her golden eyes filled with something vast and endless. Nova Zephyrian. Ray blinked, then grinned. "I like it." And in that moment, the war didn't matter. The past didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the small, radiant child in their arms. The future of an entire galaxy. Epilogue. The dawn of a new era. Somewhere, deep in the forgotten edges of space, a single black ship drifted silently. Inside, the former Zypharian emperor sat in the shadows, staring into the void. His empire was gone, his legacy shattered. And yet, he smiled. "A new age begins," he murmured to himself. Then his eyes flickered with something dark, something ancient, and they have no idea what is coming.